Hi! Today I'm going to go through my process of applying to medicine, from choosing it as a career to my final interview. My name's Camille and I'm a second year medical student at the University of Birmingham. If this is your first time here and you'd like to find out more about how to apply to medicine and how to strengthen your application, then make sure you subscribe and you click the bell button so you don't miss anything. So it's well known that a career in medicine is very different from other non-vocational courses. You will need to do most of your work experience and extra entrance exams before you even start your course. So the application process can seem quite daunting and quite long, but once you're in medical school, you only really need to focus on passing. Your job is basically already lined up for you. So this is different to other courses where at university as a student they will still have to get more work experience, internships, etc. So everyone does the same sort of work experience, but it's just at different times. So you just need to be aware that you'll be doing your application process at the same time as your A-levels. So you need to be able to make sure you can juggle both at the same time. So if you'd like to find out more about the kind of timeline of UCAS and the application, make sure you keep watching because I'll be going through what I do exactly when to give you a better idea. So before I get started in the video, let me know in the comments which part of the application you are currently at. So you usually start your application with getting some work experience. So I first decided that I might want to do medicine when I was in year 11. And we had a school careers information evening and a medical student at the University of UCL, I think, gave us a talk. And as I was sat there listening, I was like, yeah, no, I think maybe I could do that. Yeah, I'll give that a go. So I decided, yeah, I'm gonna get some work experience, see if I could maybe do medicine. So to organise my work experience, I emailed and called countless numbers of hospitals, locally and also in London. It wasn't too far away. And I just kept bugging them over and over again. It can be so difficult to get work experience, but don't give up. Keep trying, you will get it in the end. So I don't have any doctors in the family, so I don't really have anyone who can kind of, give me a free pass in. But universities know that. They know that some people have better contacts and more opportunities to go into hospital. So it doesn't matter if you don't get as much work experience as you'd like to. So in the end, after all my contacting, I managed to get 2 days of work experience in my local hospital and 3 days at a GP clinic. If you are struggling to get hospital placements, check the hospitals because they might have like student work experience programs that they set up. That's how I got mine. So definitely look into that. I did my hospital work experience during the October half term of lower sixth, so year 12. And I had some friends doing it at the same time in the same hospital, and they were watching surgery whilst I was on the orthopaedic ward just sitting in with clinic. So I know some people would absolutely love to be on the orthopaedic clinic, but it wasn't so much for me. And although I did learn a lot on my first day there, at the end of the day, I asked if I could be put somewhere else. Like I knew I wasn't probably going to get surgery, but I at least wanted to be on some wards. So I just asked around. So the next day I was allowed to follow a nurse and a junior doctor on one of the post-operative wards, I think it was. This was so useful and I learnt so much in my second day. So I was so glad that I asked to, see a different part of the hospital. So yeah, definitely, if you're not enjoying what you're doing in your work experience, definitely at least ask. It doesn't hurt to ask. And I definitely knew only after my second day that I did want to do medicine and I wanted to give it a shot. And that was only after being on the wards. So do make sure you get a nice variation of the hospital and you're not just stuck in one place, especially if you don't enjoy it. A massive tip that you should definitely take on board is to write down absolutely everything. So I wrote down in my lunch breaks and then on the way home at the end of the day on the bus, and I wrote absolutely everything. So anything that stood out for me, anything that was particularly special and memorable, anything I thought the doctors did really well. This will be vital when you're writing your personal statement and thinking about your interview answers. So write as much as you can, you won't regret writing too much. So I then did my 3 days at the GP practice. I sat in with a whole range of doctors, and I think I also asked to sit in with the nurse as well. And I managed to do some vaccinations with them, which was really exciting. By doing lots of different things and being exposed to lots of different experiences, you're going to get a much better idea of medicine. So the next step is volunteering. So I'd already done 6 months at my local care home for D of E, but I wanted to get some more recent volunteering in a different kind of environment to put on my personal statement. So I got in contact with a local school in my town, which was for children with severe learning difficulties and disabilities. I went through quite an extensive interview process and vetting process. I had a DBS check. But I was then accepted to be kind of like a learning assistant volunteer. And I did that once a week for 2 hours. And I started in the summer following lower sixth, so year 12, and I carried that on weekly throughout my upper sixth year. So as I've explained, it can be quite long to apply to some of these volunteering positions. I was so glad I did it, and I learned so much, and it really was a really special experience to be able to go every week and help these kids. So definitely do as much as you can, get involved. Not only is it really good for your UCAS, it's also a great experience. So moving on to extracurriculars. So it's important that you've done a whole range of things alongside just your academics to show that you're a well-rounded applicant when applying to med school. So throughout my time at school, I did a whole range of theatre, singing piano, I did a whole bunch of choirs, netball. All these things are great to mention in your application as they show so many skills that are vital to being a medic. And time management is especially a good one to drop in, especially if you're quite busy at school. And I'll go into more detail about why it's important to look into the extracurriculars that you're interested in when looking at universities to pick the right medical schools for you. So as far as more academic extracurriculars, I was a member of my school's medical discussion group, which was a group where we came together once a week and we talked about current medical news and issues, and it really gave us a better understanding of medicine as a whole and the challenges that we might face, and also it prepared us for interview, which is really good. Your school might have a similar setup already. If they don't, definitely think about organising this yourself, you know, with any other medicine applicants that there might be at your school. It was definitely really useful. But don't worry, if you don't have this kind of opportunity, you can still get in touch with any medics that you know, older years that might have done it already. It's really great to be able to talk to them and talk about their experience. So yeah, I definitely recommend getting in touch with any medic students that you know of. So I also attended a weekly science student-led sort of talk group where different students would give presentations each week, and I did one on infant amnesia one week, which was great to put in my personal statement. So although it wasn't science related, I also attended my school's weekly politics ethics kind of discussion group, which was equally as interesting, and it's so important that you continue all those interests that might not be scientific, but because there was a lot of discussion and debate, I found that it was still really useful to put in my application. So I was a school prefect, a year 7 mentor, I did some tutoring for GCSE students, and I was also a member of the Performing Arts Council at school, which kind of set up events for theatre and music. So all these leadership roles are great examples for your application. So if you have anything similar, then definitely put it in. Universities really want to hear about everything you've been getting up to. Don't forget your part-time job. I worked in a coffee shop for my years in sixth form, which was so good for teamwork and communication skills. I definitely learned a lot. So I was able to put a lot about that in my application. As far as reading, I read the current medical news and also the student BMJ whenever I had time. And I also read a handful of books that were on the university's recommended reading list. Definitely get your reading out the way as early as possible. Use those holidays. You won't have much time, especially in upper sixth, to read whilst you're doing all of your teaching and learning. So picking universities, I remember feeling really overwhelmed when I had to start looking at universities. There are just so many. So I started off by doing a huge research session, and I brainstormed as many universities as I could. I wrote down absolutely anything that was vaguely important to me and just had it all out in front of me. So one of the first things I did to narrow my university selection was actually to cut out all of the London unis and all of the Scottish unis, which I really regret now because my reasoning at the time was that Scotland was way too far away, didn't want to go that far, and I wanted to be on a campus uni, not a city one, so London was out of the question, which are fair enough arguments, but I later found out after starting uni that after visiting friends who were in other universities, I actually loved the idea of studying in London, and Scotland sounded great and I would have been willing to do the travel. So it just goes to show how your opinion will change. But if you're going to take anything from my example, is to not cut out unis too irrationally. Definitely think about it and put yourself in the situation where you're studying there. And make sure you think about it before you just cut them out without thinking of them again. However, something I do still stand by is that I'm not great at motivating myself to learn. So I knew that PBL wasn't going to work that well for me. So I made sure to avoid unis that were very PBL or CBL heavy. A big thing for me was clinical opportunities, so I tried to pick universities that had more clinical exposure from first years. This is something I really wanted to do. As far as prosection and dissection, I knew that there was pros of both, so I wasn't really too fussed about it. So it's definitely something to look into, but personally I still don't really mind, and I know that both are great ways to learn, so I wasn't really bothered by that. There was a couple of random points. For example, I heard from someone that in Exeter you could be moved in second year to a different campus. This might be completely wrong now. Definitely check before just taking my word for it. But that's not something I wanted, so I cut out Exeter. An important thing to look at is to check how universities offer places. So I had really strong GCSEs, so I definitely used this to my advantage, and I applied to universities that had strong weightings on GCSE grades. However, later on in my application process, I got a very average UCAS, as it was called then, the UCAS. So from that I cut out Newcastle because they have a very high cutoff, or they did. Again, check before taking my word for it. I will go into my experience of the UCAS more later on in the video, so keep watching if you want to find out more. An important thing for me was the community and MedSoc especially. So at Birmingham they have the biggest MedSoc in the country and the most active MedSoc. So that's something that really attracted me to Birmingham. They have loads of societies and sports, so I looked mainly at universities that offered a lot of these societies. I also looked into the quality of the music and the theatre, as that is something that is really important to me. So definitely check the things that are important to you, whether that be sports or debating club, whatever it is, there's something at uni for you. So do your research and see what they offer. So after narrowing down my choices, I visited 7 unis. So I went to Newcastle, Leeds, Nottingham, Birmingham, Cardiff, Oxford and Bristol. So as you can probably tell, I was super keen to see all of the unis. I wanted to go there for myself, see it myself, see if I'd fit in there. I know a lot of people that didn't go to any. I know some people that only went to 1 or 2, so it is up to you, but I definitely had a much better idea of the uni after going to visit it myself. So Leeds was the only uni that I couldn't actually see myself at out of those 7, so I did cut Leeds out. It's a great uni, I've heard amazing things about it. Just for me, I didn't like it so much. I also knew that I wanted to give Oxford a shot, even if I got rejected. I wanted to know that I gave it a chance, and I also obviously really liked Oxford, so I decided to apply there, and also to Nottingham, Birmingham, Cardiff, and then Biomed, Bristol. So I started off my personal statement before breaking up for the summer holidays at the end of lower 6th. So year 12. I edited it throughout summer, quite leisurely, quite slow pace, and then I finished it, I think, early October, before the medicine deadline. So I included pretty much everything I've talked about in this video. And on going back to school in September, I gave it to so many people, teachers, any doctors I knew, other medics, and they all gave me suggestions, but I only changed the things that I believed in and I thought sounded like me, because that is the most important part. Don't change anything in your personal statement if you don't believe it's true to yourself. So check the links in the description if you'd like help writing your personal statement. There's a whole video series there for you. So UCAS and BMAT. So I booked my UCAS, as it was called then, for the end of summer. I got ill and then had to rebook it for September, and took it whilst I was back at school doing lessons, which was a big mistake. I would definitely recommend doing it earlier in summer, you know, mid-summer or even early summer. Other people I knew were doing it around then, and they didn't have any problems. So most of my friends did it at the beginning or latest kind of mid-summer. So definitely get it out the way as early as you can. It just means that you can enjoy the rest of your summer without having to think about the UCAS the entire time. Definitely put a decent amount of time aside to revise for the UCAS. You want to make sure you've mastered each section before taking the exam. And I also took the BMAT for Oxford in the October half term of upper sixth. So if you want any more information on how to do well in the UCAS and the BMAT, then check the links in the description below again. I was lucky enough to have 2 opportunities to practice my interviews at school. I think there was 1 panel and 1 MMI. For some reason, these were optional. I definitely think if you get given the opportunity to have a mock interview, definitely take it. Even if you make a fool of yourself, it's still incredibly useful. So I got 2 offers for interview, one from Birmingham and one from Cardiff. So Cardiff was my first, and I did that one in January. I remember the Cardiff interview was really friendly. Everyone was lovely. We went to do some clinical skills before the interview, I think, and it was a really nice atmosphere. It was only when we got into the interview hall that it was a lot more scary. I think there was a massive countdown clock on the wall, and you know, there were horns being used to warn people of how long they had left. It was really off-putting, but that's just the kind of techniques that medical schools use to put you off. You just gotta remain level-headed. So the MMIs were challenging, and the interviewers would push you, but it wasn't anything too awful. I remember they always seem to have a weird question. So I was given a picture of the Welsh Hills and told to describe it. I think what they wanted to get out of that question was more that you understood that there was lots of remote locations in Wales and often not very good access to healthcare that was nearby or whatever. So just try to think about what they're asking you in the weird questions, but yeah, apparently that's one they do frequently. So for Birmingham, they were a lot more serious on arriving, especially in contrast with Cardiff. Everyone was very strict and a little bit scary. I can tell you, since I'm there, everyone is really friendly. Again, I think it was just an interview technique to try and put you off maybe and see how you deal with stress. But yeah, always remember to stay cheerful and calm throughout your interview. So at Birmingham, they repeated a lot of previous questions, which is great because I literally had those answers on the top of my head and I would just list them off. Otherwise, they're just really classic questions. Again, challenging, but not too difficult. I would definitely recommend asking older years who perhaps had interviews at the unis you're applying to ask for the previous questions that they were asked, because unis really do repeat their questions. So it's just an easy way to be more prepared. Again, if you'd like more information on how to do well at your interviews, make sure you check in the description below. So I only ended up getting 1 offer from Birmingham, but you only need one offer. So I was happy. So thank you for listening to my application process. I hope this gives you a better insight of what you might expect if you want to apply to medicine. Hopefully it won't seem so daunting when you break it up into little sections and you prepare for each bit individually. So if you found this video useful, make sure to give it a thumbs up, share it with any of your friends that might find it useful. Remember, if you would like any more information or if you have any questions or anything, don't be afraid to get into contact. The Medic Mind team are always on hand to help. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.